So like I've mentioned previously, we have a very long section, chapter 8 or section 8.5. It's pretty long, and we're going to break it up into little chunks. And today we're only going to be doing 1 through 12. We are going to do the rest the next time we meet. So we're going to practice factoring out the GCF. So it says factor each polynomial. On the instruction says using distributive property. It's really using distributive property but backwards, right? So whenever you have any polynomial, go ahead and start by writing your parentheses and then thinking what's in common with the 64 and the 40AB. Now if you say nothing, well, there's definitely no A's here. There's an A there. There's a B there, but there's no B there. But how about the numbers 64 and 40? Do they have anything in common? 8. Excellent. I was actually thinking 4, but 8's even better. 4 is not the GCF. 8 is the GCF. So let's pull out an 8. Whoa, what happened there? Sorry. Let's pull out an 8, and let's think 8, that GCF times what gives me 64? Positive 8. And then 8 times what gives me a negative 40AB. Negative 5AB. And that's it. If you check, wait, you know what? You don't have the answers in the back. It's on the back of your notes. So if you have your notes, on the back of your notes, you'll be able to check your answers as we go. And again, we're only doing 1 through 12. We'll continue next week with the rest of them, all right? So one skill at a time. I'll do the odd ones on this video. So number 3, put parentheses. Let's look at both terms. So what's in common with the 6r squared t and the negative 3rt squared? There's definitely a 3 in common, so we should all write a 3. But how about the variables? Is there any variables in common in both terms? There's r's and there's t's. What's the maximum amount of r's I could pull out from both? Just 1, right? See, there's 2 r's here. Could you pull out 2 r's from here? Yes. But could you pull out 2 r's from here? No, you can't. There's only 1 r. So the maximum amount of r's you could pull out from both at the same time is simply 1 r. So we're going to have 1 r. And it's same thing with the t's. There's 1 t here, there's 2 here, but the maximum amount of t's you could pull out from both at the same time is simply 1 t. So let's put 1 t like that. I'm going to use a capital T. So our GCF is 3rt. Let's think. 3rt times what will get me back to a 6r squared t? In other words, 3 times what gives me 6? 2. Okay, and then how about the r? R times what gives me an r squared? R. And then how about this? T times what gives me a t? No, you don't need anything. You could put a 1, but that's pointless, right? So we're just going to leave it 2r. That's it. Now how about the next term? 3rt times what gives us a negative 3rt squared? Okay, so we need a negative sign for sure. You could put a 1 if you want. You don't have to. But how about the r times what gives me an r? You don't need anything because it's already there. T times what gives me a t squared? T. So we're going to put a t right there. Now, like I said, you don't need this 1 out here. You could erase it. And there's your factored form. The GCF 3rt is outside, and on the inside you have a 2r minus t. Let's jump to number 5. 2 terms. Everybody start with your parentheses. Let's look at both terms and see what's in common in both. Let's take a look at the 32 and the 24. They're both even numbers, so at the very worst case scenario, you could factor out a 2, right? But maybe a 4 will work. Maybe an 8 works. An 8 works, so let's do an 8. Let's pull out the GCF 8. Now, is there anything else I could pull out? Is there A's in both terms? No. Is there B's in both terms? No. So that's about it. So maybe we should write our 8 a little closer to the parentheses since that's all there is. I thought there was going to be variables, but there isn't any variables in common in both terms. So here we go. 8 times what is 32a squared? 8 times what gets us back to here? 8 times 4 with an a to the second. You need that a to the second in there, right? That's the only way you're going to get 8 times 4a squared to give you the 32a squared. How about 8 times what gets us a 24b squared? Plus 3, that'll get us a 24, but we need the b to the second, so we better have a b to the second in here. B to the second. And that's it. We have factored out the GCF, which is 8. Let's jump to number 7. The number 30 and the number 35, what's in common there? 5. You know what, let me start with the parentheses like always. So we are going to pull out a 5, but is there any letters or variables that are in common? Yes, there's x's and there's y's. What is the maximum amount of x's I could pull out from both of them at the same time? 2, right? You have 3 here, you have 2 here. The maximum amount of x's you could pull out from both at the same time is x squared, 2 x's. So we're going to put an x squared right next to the 5. How about those y's? What's the maximum amount of y's I could pull out? Just 1 y, because right here you have 1, right here you have 2. You can only pull out 1 from both at the same time. So now that we know the GCF, we're going to say this GCF, 5x squared y, times what will get us back to this one? 6. X. No need for y, right? If I put a y, it'd be wrong because y times y is y squared, not y. So that's it, 6x. Let's put a plus sign. 7, because 5 times 7 is 35. 7y, yeah. Because x squared times what gets you an x squared? Nothing, you don't need it. It's already x squared. How about y times what gives us a y squared? Just a y. And that's it. Number 11. 3 terms. More fun. Oh, I skipped 9. I'm sorry. Let's go back to 9. 2 terms. Not as fun. What's the GCF there? 5? 15 is even better, right? 5 works, but that's not the greatest common factor. 15 would be the greater value. Now, how about with b's and g's? How many b's could I pull out from both terms at the same time? 1 b. And how about the g's? How many g's could I pull out from both terms at the same time? How many do I have here? How many do I have here? I could pull out 3 of them from both at the same time. So let me do that. G to the third. So 15 b g to the third is our official GCF for number 9. Now 15 times what gets us back to 75? 15 times 5 gets us back to 75. And then b times what gets us back to b squared? You need a b right there. And the g's, it's already taken care of, right? G to the third times, you could put a 1 right here, but that would be pointless. We already have the g to the third, right? So let's move on to the next term. We have a plus sign. 15 times what gets us to 60? 4. B times what gets us b? Well, you could put a 1 right there, but 4 times 1 is still going to be 4, so you don't need to put a 1. G to the third times g to the third, or g to the third times nothing will give you g to the third. So you can put a 1 right there also. So we're done right there. Did that make sense? I don't know if people are getting confused. I mean, if you wanted to, you could put, when you say b times what gets us b, well, you could put a times 1, but that would be totally pointless. Same thing with the g to the third. G to the third times what gets us g to the third? Well, you could put times 1 right there, but we already know that 4 times 1 is still 4. That's why we don't put anything. Oh man, I can't erase that last one. Sorry about that. Let me just do that. So there's your answer, 15b g to the third, in parentheses 5b plus 4. The last one on this video, trinomial. Put the parentheses first. There's definitely a 5 in common in all 3 terms, 5, 10, 25. You can pull out the multiple of 5. How about the x's? What's the maximum amount of x's I could pull out? 1 single x. How about the y's? What's the maximum amount of y's I could pull out from all 3 terms? None. Right? There's a y squared here, there's 1 y here, but there's no y over here. And it's always about pulling it from all the terms, right? So the only thing that's in common in all 3 terms is a 5x. There's a 5x in here, a 5x in there, and there's even a 5x in there. So let's figure out what's left over. 5x times what gets us a 5x cubed y to the second? X to the second y to the second. Now, if you wanted to, you could put a 1 right here. You don't have to. I probably won't. The middle term is going to be what? Positive 2, because 5 times 2 is 10. Now, x times what is x squared? X times x. And how about the y? You need it. Last but not least, plus what? Plus 5. Because 5x times 5 will get you the 25x that's up there. Guys, we've done half of the homework. I need you guys to do the other half, the even ones. Go for it.